Welcome in, everyone. Ready to dive deep into It's Your Time
Oh,
with Joel Osteen.
oh yeah.
We are going to be unpacking all sorts of inspiring stories and powerful messages, really
Mhm.
all about grabbing those opportunities and living a life that is just truly fulfilling.
Absolutely.
You ready to shift your perspective a bit?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's dive into It's Your Time.
One of the things that I find so fascinating about this book is how it really emphasizes the power of perspective, especially when things get tough.
Right.
It's like Osteen is saying, hey, those roadblocks that you see?
Mm-hmm.
Those might actually be like stepping stones to something amazing.
I love how he starts the book with that story about his tough hike,
Yeah.
where he's exhausted,
Yeah.
doubting himself, and then he's passed by this older gentleman
Right.
who simply says, "You're closer than you think."
Oh, I love
It's
that.
just such a simple phrase, but it's like it reframes everything.
It really does.
What do you think is the deeper message there?
It's all about perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
We get so caught up in like how far we still have to go that we forget to even acknowledge the
Right.
progress we've already made?
Oh, for sure.
So Osteen's hike, it's really like this metaphor for life, right?
Well.
When we feel discouraged, it's like just shifting our focus to what we have already accomplished.
Yeah.
That can be incredibly empowering.
What about that stands out to you?
You know what? It reminds me of
Yeah.
how easy it is to get paralyzed by focusing solely on that finish line.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Oh, yeah?
Maybe the real key is to celebrate those little wins along the way and just trust that forward momentum even when it feels slow or even invisible.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of trusting, remember that story about Victoria Osteen losing her wedding ring?
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness.
It seemed impossible to find, but for 3 years, she held on to this belief that it would turn up. And then, crazy enough, it did.
Yeah.
Blows me away every time.
Yes.
She tells Joel to slow down to avoid a speeding ticket, and there it is.
Right there on the side of the road.
How can we cultivate that prisoner of hope mindset?
I know.
Like, how do we do that in daily life when logic and circumstances seem totally stacked against us?
That's such a great question. I think for me, it's about anchoring ourselves to a belief that goes beyond like what we see in the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
So, Osteen uses this story of this couple that's trying to sell their house during a tough market
Right.
as another example. Everyone's telling them it's impossible,
Yeah.
but they hold on to that prisoner of hope mindset,
Right.
and then they actually succeed.
It's amazing.
They defied those odds simply by choosing to believe in a different outcome.
Yeah. So it sounds like choosing to focus on possibility rather than limitation.
Yes.
But isn't there a danger in becoming delusional or ignoring red flags?
You're so right. That's such a good point.
Yeah. How do we balance that?
Yeah, how do you balance that hope with like a dose of reality?
Yeah.
I think you've hit on something really important. It's not about ignoring reality
Right.
or rejecting logic.
Right.
It's more about holding on to that inner conviction that things can work out.
Right.
Even when the external evidence seems to say the opposite.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads us into Osteen's idea of bold prayers,
Yes.
which, can be easily misinterpreted. It's not about demanding things from God or being driven by
Right.
selfish ambition.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I
Yeah.
think you're right. It's definitely not about dictating to God what he should do.
Right.
I
love the analogy he uses about the boxes of blessings in heaven.
Oh, yeah.
It's just stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that there's just this incredible abundance waiting to be claimed.
Yes.
But we need to ask.
Yeah.
We need to ask, and we can't be afraid to ask for big things.
Right.
So how do we balance those bold prayers with aligning our desires with God's will?
I think it starts with examining our motives, right?
Mhm.
Are we seeking things for our own, like glory, or are we seeking a life that's truly in line with God's purpose for us?
Right.
It's
It's not about selfish ambition.
not about, fleeting
No.
desires or selfish ambitions.
Right.
Osteen talks about the orange grower in Florida who's facing this devastating freeze.
Yeah.
Instead of panicking, he prays for his crops. He walks through the grove believing for protection, and his crops are spared.
He refused to accept defeat.
Yes.
It wasn't just about the oranges.
Yeah.
It was about this belief in something bigger than himself.
Right.
And a power that can literally defy the natural order of things. What freeze are we facing in our own lives?
That's good.
And what would it look like to respond with that level of faith?
Such a powerful question. It really challenges us to look at how we respond to adversity. Are we letting fear and doubt cripple us, or are we actively looking for solutions?
Right.
Believing in God's provision.
Yeah.
And, as Osteen would say, embracing a thriving mentality.
Okay, let's talk about that. Thriving.
Yeah.
This isn't just about surviving.
Right.
It's like Osteen's talking about a whole different way of being, of operating from a place of abundance and expectancy,
Yes.
even when things are really tough.
Absolutely. I love how he paints that picture of moving beyond mere survival mode
Right.
into this mindset of like growth and expansion, even when you're in the midst of challenges.
Yeah. Do you remember the story about the woman who climbed the ranks at that film studio?
Yes.
Yeah. Starting as a temp receptionist and through a series of seemingly random events,
Right.
ends up a vice president.
It's like she was unknowingly walking into those blessings that God had already set up.
It's like they were waiting for her to step into them.
Yes.
Reminds me of the story of Ruth, finding those handfuls on purpose.
Oh, I love that story.
It's almost like God was leaving clues for her to find,
Yes.
placing blessings right in her path.
Absolutely.
How do we become more attuned to recognizing those divine appointments in our own lives?
Wow, that is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it makes me think about how important it is to just stay present,
Right.
Be aware of the opportunities that are literally right there in front of us.
Yeah.
And be open to God's leading, even when it comes in those really unexpected packages.
Right. Think about the areas in your life where you're hoping for a breakthrough.
Yes.
Could it be that some of those blessings are already there,
Yeah.
just waiting for you to see them?
That's powerful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Powerful thought. Maybe we need to pay closer attention to those seemingly random events
Yeah.
or chance encounters.
Right.
Maybe they're not so random after all.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're walking through this field and it's already got all these blessings scattered everywhere.
Yeah.
But we're so focused on what we don't have
Yeah.
that we just completely miss what's right there in front of us.
Totally.
And sometimes those blessings, they're connected to our words.
Right.
Do you remember how Osteen talks about
Oh, yeah.
speaking those faith-filled words over your life and over your situations?
Yes, that is huge in It's Your Time.
Yes.
He's so adamant about choosing our words carefully
Right.
and just avoiding that negativity.
Yeah.
I was so struck by his vulnerability when he shared about that dream
Yeah.
he had about the empty auditorium.
Yes.
And how he had to fight those negative thoughts by speaking words of faith.
Yeah.
It makes you realize
Yeah.
he's human too. He's dealing with the same things we are.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's just this powerful reminder that our thoughts, our words, they're so powerful. What we think about, what we say,
Right.
they directly influence our reality.
Yeah.
Osteen, he really believes that we can literally shape the course of our lives by choosing to focus on God's promises and even speaking them out loud,
Yes.
even when things look really bleak.
Yeah. What resonates with you about that?
It makes me think about how easy it is to fall into
Yeah.
negative self-talk.
Right.
Or complaining.
Or just negativity.
Negativity, yeah.
Yeah.
We become what we repeatedly think and say.
Yeah. But what about the times when we've messed up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can our words undo the damage of our past?
That's where I think Osteen's emphasis on restoration and comeback comes in.
Okay, yeah.
He says God specializes in second chances. And he has the power to redeem even our most painful experiences.
Right.
Like, remember the story of Wiley,
Yeah.
who was addicted to cocaine for 40 years.
For 40 years.
And overcame it.
Amazing story.
It's a testament to God's redemptive power
Mm.
and his ability to make things new.
Or the woman
Yes.
who was reunited with her daughter
Oh, at the book signing.
after 13 years.
Yes.
Those are some powerful stories of restoration.
Powerful.
Those stories. They offer such a glimmer of hope
Yes.
for anyone who feels defined by their past
Absolutely.
or trapped by regret.
Yeah.
It's like Osteen saying, hey, your past doesn't have to dictate your future.
Right.
God can take all the broken pieces
Yeah.
and make something beautiful.
Beautiful.
How do we tap into that restoration power?
Right.
Is it as simple as saying, I'm forgiven
Yeah.
and moving on?
I think it's more than just words. I
Yeah.
think it's like a heart posture.
Okay.
It's about believing that we are forgiven,
Mm.
releasing the shame, the guilt
Yeah.
that holds us captive.
Right.
It's about receiving God's grace and letting him heal those wounds from the past. Osteen emphasizes trusting in God's ability to work things out, even when we don't see how it's possible.
Yeah.
He compares it to the resilience of a palm tree,
Yeah.
bending but not breaking in those strong winds.
What comes to mind for you with that?
Oh, it's a powerful visual, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just seeing that palm tree swaying in
Yeah.
the hurricane.
Yeah.
It reminds me that we're all going to face storms in life.
Right.
The key is not to avoid the storms,
Yeah.
but to develop that inner flexibility and
Yeah.
strength that allows us to withstand the pressure
Yeah.
without being completely shattered.
Yeah. He shares that incredibly moving story
Yes.
of Chris, who battled cancer multiple times,
Mm-hmm.
even in the face of such overwhelming adversity.
Yeah.
His outlook, his faith, never wavered.
It's amazing.
How do we cultivate that bounce-back spirit?
I think it starts with recognizing that
Yeah.
setbacks, challenges, they're just part of life.
Right.
It's not about being naive and thinking everything's always going to be easy.
Right.
It's about developing that resilience,
Yeah.
that deep belief that we can handle whatever comes our way.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that, as Osteen says, is remembering
Yeah.
that God is with us
Through it all.
through it all. What do you think about that?
That message really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to feel lost or insignificant
Right.
in this big world.
Yeah.
But, those stories he shares,
Mm-hmm.
like the woman who lost her home
Yes.
and then had it unexpectedly returned,
Yes.
those are powerful reminders that God sees us.
He sees us.
Even when we feel invisible.
Even when we feel invisible.
It's like he's whispering, I haven't forgotten you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still working.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
And sometimes he works through the kindness of others.
Yeah.
Like in that story of Jamie, who felt led to donate a kidney to a stranger.
Wow.
A stranger he met while he was selling vacuum cleaners.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It really challenges us to be open,
Mm.
to be willing to be the answer
Yeah,
to someone else's prayer.
absolutely. Maybe part of cultivating that bounce back spirit is recognizing
Yes.
we're not meant to go through these storms alone.
We're not.
There's power in community,
Absolutely.
in knowing that we have people we can lean on.
Yes.
But beyond surviving these challenges,
Yeah.
Osteen also encourages us to step into the unique potential that God has placed within us.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
He challenges us to not let our past define us, to push past those limits
Yeah.
that we set for ourselves.
Yeah.
And embrace the possibility of something greater.
Right. You know the story of Michael Jordan
Oh, yeah.
being cut from his high school basketball team?
I love that story.
He always makes me smile because can you imagine
I know.
the greatest basketball player of all time
Yeah.
being told he wasn't good enough?
I know.
It's mind-blowing.
mind-blowing.
But instead of letting that rejection define him,
Mm-hmm.
he used it as fuel
Yes.
to work harder, to prove himself.
Yeah.
That's a powerful lesson.
Powerful.
And resilience and believing in your potential,
Yes.
even when others don't see it.
Even when others don't. And you know that story
Yeah.
of the little boy who played chopsticks on the piano
That's
and
it.
the master pianist
Yeah,
recognized his potential.
raw potential.
It's just beautiful. Sometimes all we need is someone to believe in us,
To encourage us.
to encourage us to keep going. Yeah.
It highlights how crucial it is to have people in our lives
Yes.
who speak life into us and see our potential,
Yes.
even when we don't.
Yeah.
What about those times when
Yeah.
we feel like we're just not good enough,
Right.
that we lack the skills or the
Yeah.
talent to achieve our dreams?
Osteen reminds us, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And he will equip us
Mm.
with everything we need to fulfill his plan.
He uses the example of Peter walking on water,
Yes.
stepping out of the boat onto the water.
Yeah.
That takes immense faith.
Immense faith.
Yeah, it's about trusting that God will meet us where we are,
Yeah.
empower us to do things we never thought possible.
It's a reminder that our destiny is often found on the other side of our fear.
Yes.
And that God is with us every step of the way.
Even when we're walking on water.
Even when we're walking on water. Yes. Yeah, it's like we're all invited to walk on water with God. But Osteen also talks about this idea of believing for like far and beyond favor. You know, it's not just about getting by. It's about believing God wants to bless us abundantly.
Right.
Like exceeding our wildest expectations.
He really pushes us to take those limits off of God.
He does.
Stop putting him in a box.
Yeah.
And start believing for things that seem impossible.
Yes.
I think of Stephanie's story.
Yes.
Where she steps out in faith, believing for this $5 million blessing. And bam! God provides it in a way that she never could have imagined.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just a reminder that
it's incredible.
God operates on a whole different level than we do.
Right.
You know, and with God, nothing is impossible. And he loves to just shower his kids with blessings.
Yeah.
Do you remember the story of Sarah conceiving a child in her old age?
Yeah.
That's a testament to God's ability to do the impossible.
That's powerful.
It's a story that just echoes through history, you know, encouraging us to just hold on to hope.
Right.
No matter how long we've been waiting or how big the obstacles seem.
It's like those stories are saying, hey, don't give up.
Right.
Keep believing.
Yes.
God is still in the miracle working business.
He is.
Sometimes waiting on God's timing, though, can be tough.
Yeah.
How do we navigate those seasons of waiting without losing hope or becoming cynical?
Yeah, that's where that trust comes in. It's about surrendering our timeline to God's perfect timing.
Right.
Remember Zerubbabel?
Yeah.
Who laid the foundation for the temple, but then had like a 10-year delay.
Oh, wow.
Before it could be completed.
Wow, okay.
Or Dawn, who tried to have a baby for 29 years before she finally conceived twins.
Oh, my goodness.
These stories, they teach us about patience.
Yeah.
Perseverance.
Yeah.
They remind us that sometimes our breakthrough comes after a long season of waiting.
Right.
And that waiting, it's used by God to refine us.
Okay.
To prepare us.
Yeah, it makes me think of like delayed gratification.
Yes.
Maybe those delays are actually like divine setups.
Absolutely.
Designed to grow our faith and deepen our dependence on God.
I love that.
But it's not about passively waiting, right?
Right.
Osteen also talks about recognizing and seizing those divine appointments.
Yes. It's a balance between trusting God's timing and being ready to receive the blessing, you know? It's like being ready to catch the ball when God throws it our way.
Yeah, yeah. Remember the story of the woman who started as a temp receptionist and climbed the ranks to be a vice president?
Yes.
She was just going about her business, doing her best.
Yeah.
And it seems like those divine appointments just fell in her lap.
I know, it's like she stumbled into her destiny.
Right. But it wasn't all luck.
Right.
Right. She was prepared. She was willing to work hard.
She was open.
She was open.
Yes.
It reminds me of Osteen talking about doing the natural so God can do the supernatural.
Oh, that's good.
It's not about sitting back and waiting for God to do everything.
Right.
We have a part to play.
Absolutely. Our efforts and God's grace, they work together.
Right.
It's about stepping out, taking action,
Yeah.
trusting God will meet us there.
But even when we're putting in the effort, doing our part, there are times when things don't go according to plan.
Right.
We face setbacks, we make mistakes, we hit those closed doors.
Yeah.
How does Osteen address those moments of disappointment?
Well, he reminds us that sometimes those closed doors, they're actually redirects.
Right.
Like God's saying, okay, that path wasn't for you.
Right.
Let me show you something even better.
Yeah.
And that requires, you know, flexibility, willingness to change course.
To adjust our sails when the wind changes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. And that takes humility.
Yeah.
You know, surrendering our plans to God's bigger picture.
Right.
Trusting that he sees what we don't.
Yeah.
That he's taking us to something incredible.
Think about Mary McLeod Bethune, who wanted to teach kids in Africa.
Yeah.
But ends up founding a school for African-American kids in the U.S.
Wow.
Her impact was amazing.
Incredible, yeah.
Makes you wonder, what redirect are we resisting?
Right.
Could it be that God is trying to lead us to something more fulfilling?
To a greater purpose. That's a great question. It challenges us to really look at why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
To be open to the possibility that maybe what we want isn't what God has for us.
Right. What about those times when we feel like we've just messed up so badly
Right.
that there's no hope.
Osteen reminds us that God, he specializes in second chances.
Right.
That no matter what we've done or how far we've strayed, his grace is bigger.
Yeah.
He talks about his own father leaving the ministry for a time, but then eventually returning and having even greater success.
Wow.
It's a reminder that it's never too late to start over.
Right.
To get back on track.
Yeah.
To step into that fullness of God's plan.
It's like those stories are breathing life into that scripture. He restores my soul.
Yes.
There's so much hope in knowing that we can always come back.
Always.
No matter how far we've wandered.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into It's Your Time, what is one key takeaway you wanted to leave with our listeners?
I think it's this. No matter what you're facing, no matter what setbacks you've had, God is still working.
Yeah.
He sees you. He loves you.
Right.
And he has a plan for your life that is bigger than anything you can imagine. This is your time to rise, to thrive, to experience God's best.
What a powerful message. Remember, it's not about striving or earning God's favor.
No.
It's about aligning our hearts with his, trusting his timing and stepping out in faith. Knowing he's got us.
Every step of the way.
What dream are you ready to start believing for again?
That's good.
What step can you take today to move closer to your place of blessing?
Yeah.
Remember, it's your time to shine.